Hello and welcome. I am so glad you're here. I'm Beth, a creator-based coach with CMH Coaching for Life. I'm here today to help you and those you love create a life you feel grounded and at home in. Think of a life where you feel peace, love for those around you, and in a flow with just enough challenge to keep you happy and creating something wonderful. Sounds like magic, but it's not. You can create that life every single day. You can have a life full of love, excitement, hope, and creation. Our mission at CMH Coaching is to flood the earth with light through compassion, mindfulness, and hope. And I'm going to ask a favor of you. If you like what you see and hear today, think of someone you know that would enjoy and benefit from this message. Our mission is to flood the world with compassion, mindfulness, and hope. Share this with them. But for now, this is time just for you. So settle into whatever you're doing and enjoy this time with the girls, where we create that one awesome, amazing, perfect life every one of us is seeking.
You gotta watch your thinking. Watch your thinking. Watch your thinking.
This week for the whole month with Jaycine, because Jaycine is leading us in grit and grace for the month. And today she has some really special stories to share, from what I understand. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
To me, life is just one big story, you know. I love looking at life and how this story connects to this story and this story connects to this story. And it's so fun. It's so fun.
They just all go together. It's one great big story.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking about grit and grace and more. We really established what grit was, you know. It's just this ability to just press forward and then I started thinking, okay, well, what is grace? And grace is so encompassing. It has so I looked up and somebody had something, there's 10 ways to practice grace in your daily life. And one was start with yourself. So choosing to treat yourself with kindness. So kindness is grace, right? And goodwill. And number 2 is learn to let go. So just kind of let go, give yourself grace. You can let go.
That's like B- is good enough. Learn to let go, right?
Just let go. And then practice gratitude, because that brings grace into your life. And it's and learn to forgive yourself, forgive others, apologize. Who thinks of that as grace? It is, right?
Well, it is. I think of grace as mercy and benevolence. And so isn't that forgiveness, to learn to forgive, right?
It is.
To be gracious.
Yeah. And so forgive, apologize, be mindful. We talk about that all the time. Be mindful.
That gift of presence. Yeah.
Yeah. And speak kindly. Have compassion. Like CMA coaching,
compassion too. You're hitting all the good ones.
Right? Accept people for who they are. And then the last one that it said, have a sense of humor. Right?
Amen. Amen. Just laugh.
You gotta be able to laugh at yourself. So I was thinking about the grace, and like the grace that we get from our Creator. You know, I call my Creator God and my Heavenly Father. And the grace that I receive from Him is like this peace. And all of those things that we talked about brings this peace beyond understanding. And it brings me joy, you know, joy that oftentimes I don't get anywhere else. And so I love the word grace. I
like grace because it's powerful. It allows me to do things that I wouldn't ordinarily be able to do by myself. And when I think of, like you were talking about God's grace, it's the power that gives me courage, you know, or the power that gives me a quickening in my mind so that I think better, or it's a power. that grace. But it again comes from that kindness and compassion and benevolence, like you were talking about.
I love that. Jenn, did you have some thoughts on grace?
Yeah.
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 Well, no, as I've been like thinking about how, grit and grace go together, and just, what does grit and grace look like in my life, and how would I want it to look like in my life? And all the things we've talked about, but to me, I get a kind of an image of myself almost like flowing through life, because you're graceful. You're like, you have the, not only the ability, but the capability, everything to flow gracefully, flow through your life. So that's kind of what's going on in my head. I'm like, because life is like, we talk about 50-50, and, we're going through those grit times, but we can be graceful as we're going through those grit times because of all those things we talked about, because we've had gratitude, because we're connected to our creator, and we're asking and relying on grace from above. And so to me, it's like that, this almost like this dance or this flow that's just, I don't know, seamless. Yeah, it just happens. And so I can be going through just times, but I can flow through it, and sometimes you trip, you fall flat on your face, but you get back up and you start again. But I don't know, that's just kind of like what's going in my head. How can I flow gracefully through the gritty times, so I don't know, just thoughts.
I love that. I love that. Well, I'm gonna share a story. So
okay, I'm ready. Story time.
I see I'm in my library here. I wish it was my library. It's really not. It's my virtual library. And I just imagine it has like just the most incredible books. But I think honestly, the most incredible stories lie within us, and lie within our families, and lie within people that we know and that we love, and just the stories that make everyday life, that a lot of times people don't even think that they're doing anything spectacular. They're just trying to make it through. And in reality, those of us that are watching, or that have the afterthought that come after them, and we get to hear their stories, are just like, whoa, blown away, right? They don't think they did anything spectacular, but man, when we see them as spectacular. And I have two women in my life that have just, one that I knew exquisitely. She influenced, man, you know what? If I described her, she was weaved into the very fabric of my soul. She is. And she became one of my best friends as a child, and then as a teenager. And she was my confidant as a teenager. It was my grandma on my mom's side, my grandma Rathbun. And, as in third grade, I wrote about her being my hero. And she still is my hero. Even though she's been gone for several years, she's still my hero. And I actually have come to understand, as I found documents written by her, that courage and strength that she had are actually part of my DNA. I found some documents 8 years ago when we moved here. I was going through some old things that were stored out in our barn, that my mom had come from my mom's house, and I was just going through things, and I found this document, this little booklet that was in just this cardboard box, this small cardboard box, and it was wrapped in a ribbon, and I was like, well, what is this? And it was some writings that my grandmother had shared regarding my great grandmother, her mother. And in her own words, she shares the strength of her mother. And I believe that my great grandmother, Hester Louise Nichols, was given direct revelation, or the grace from God, to help her know how to empower her daughter physically, emotionally, and spiritually. It was because of my great grandmother's unyielding faith, hope, and her ability to listen to and act upon thoughts that she had. And she had a relentless belief that her daughter would live a full and productive life. I was blessed with a grandmother who shaped my life and taught me that all things are possible. And I wrote that like in third grade. You know, my grandma tells me all things are possible. And so I believed it. I believed her. And she showed me that even when life is hard, you can find beauty. So I would sit with my grandma and she would notice the birds. And why do you think that bird is near that flower? Or why do you think, just questioning, why do you think that, Jaycine? Or why did they choose that flower? Or, you know, why did the bee land here? Anyway, it was just always these, she helped me notice like the fine details and the beauty that was all around me. And she made me laugh. Like my grandma taught me how to laugh. Oftentimes it was in the worst of circumstances. She taught me how to look at a situation differently. She taught me how to look outside the box. Just like I said, why do you think that bee landed on that flower? And she taught me to see things that no one ever taught me to see. And she showed me how to never give up.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, my great grandma, I didn't know her very well. We moved a lot. I only met my great grandma just like a couple of times. And honestly, she was pretty old. She was in her, you know, I wanted to go play with my second cousins instead of hang out with my great grandma, you know, just because I didn't really know her. But I remember her, and then finding this book that my grandma shared or wrote. I cannot imagine my how my great grandmother did it. As a mother and grandmother myself, I have such adoration for my great grandma Nichols. I can't imagine the sleepless nights of worries and concern that she must have had for my grandma. All of the failed attempts that she must have experienced while she relentlessly exercised my grandma's legs. It was a time before physical therapy existed, and the doctors told her she was crazy, but somehow, or I believe through the grace of our Creator, she was able to do the unexplainable. She taught my grandmother how to walk. Mm-hmm. So I want to read to you guys what my grandma wrote about her, just an excerpt out of this cute little box that I found. My grandma writes, my earliest recollection of my mother must have been shortly after birth and lingered for some time after. There always seemed to be a delicate aroma about my mother, like fresh springtime flowers. I'll never forget the loving smile in her eyes and her sweet small mouth. Mother had a wistful smile. She was full of great tenderness, but stubborn and determined in principles that she felt were just. She didn't mince words. She always knew just where you stood with Mom. Reflecting on her today as a mother and grandmother, I see her as a person of great courage and determination. She had to be and do all that she did to help make me function. You see, at the age of 5 months, I was a victim of polio. Back then in 1915, it was known as infantile paralysis. Doctors said that I would never walk or be able to function alone. With Mother's relentless determination, courage, perseverance, and persuasiveness, I learned to walk with the aid of 2 stiff leg braces. I feel that I have been able to enjoy a full and abundant life, to marry and to bear a lovely daughter of my own, because my mother's determination. It took many years of consistent effort through Mother's part to bring this about, massaging me and exercising me once or twice daily. I was paralyzed from the left shoulder down, which gave me little to work with in my early years. Doctors advised my parents to put me into a cart or a wheelchair. To doctors, there was little hope of ever having feeling restored to my body. My mother felt differently in a way that could only a mother could understand. When I was barely high enough to bend my body over the couch, Mother bound my knees stiff so my legs were straight. She placed my feet 1 foot in front of the other and then would move my body. This process continued for a good long time, years, until finally I was able to go the length of the couch without any help. Talk about perseverance, right?
Persistence. Yes. Perseverance and not giving up.
Yeah.
Wow. Valor, courage, all of it. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was about this time a good bit of my feeling returned throughout my body. Dad cut off the back of an old wooden kitchen chair to help me get around. With my body weight on the seat of the chair and the aid of my first pair of leg braces, I pushed that chair up and down the block. The neighbor women were so kind and would visit me as I rested before heading back home. I graduated to pushing a doll buggy with the front end heavily weighted to keep it from tipping over. The handles were a bit high, but it helped me learn how to walk upright. There were so many experiences like these throughout my childhood. I've only shared a small part. I know Mother always planned to give me the drive I needed, but I'm sure she became discouraged and had moments of wondering if all the effort would amount to anything. The changes for me physically were slow and gradual. She had to be hopeful because at times that may have been the only thing she had to keep on going. I thank God for sending her to me, or sending me to her, the stubborn soul that I am, and my grandmother was stubborn. To her, that she felt she could mold me into what I am today. And I just, oh my gosh, like I got a glimpse of my great grandma, right? And I'm like, well, no wonder I'm so stinking stubborn. No wonder I can do this. Why couldn't I do this, right?
Uh-huh. That is funny. You know, it's really funny that you bring that particular story up, because I know you had asked me if I had somebody in my past.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, my mother-in-law, who was born in the very early 1930s, had cerebral palsy and was told she would never walk. And her mom said, her doctor said, put her in a home. But her mother, my husband's grandmother, did the same thing. Nancy Ellen was my mother-in-law, and she was just so determined. She was going to be just like the other kids, and she was going to do it just same thing. And so she would ride her bike and crash and ride her bike and crash. And she learned to walk pushing the doll buggy the same way. And she put herself to school, but she had a really hard time with reading and some of the other things from the cerebral palsy, but managed to finish college. You know, she raised 3 children. It was when my husband and I were dating, we dated in high school. And there was one day when we drove my mom to absolute distraction. She was just beside herself with us. I don't know what we were doing, but whatever it was. And she said to both of us, she shook her finger and she said, I hope all of your children have stubborn, pointy chins just like yours. And all of us have that same, all of my children we all have the same chin, and we all have that same determination. And while we joke, it's the grandma curse, it's not the grandma curse. It's the beautiful DNA that we inherited from those grandparents, right? Because we just know there is a way we can get it done. It's amazing that our grandmothers were so similar. That is beautiful.
Yeah. And just thinking.
Venerable
women. Yeah. And being able to listen, right, to the grace, because the things that were known at that time.
Yeah.
They said, just put them in a chair. That's never going to work, right? It's never going to work. And
but those moms knew better. They knew what their child needed, and they knew how to stay with it and do it right.
Yep.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah. It's amazing. And there's like, I'm looking at the 3 women here on this call and the grit and grace we've been through. There's stuff, and you guys out there, the The stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
It
that
is.
that grit combined with that grace makes for the ultimate success story.
Mm-hmm. You got to have them both.
Yeah. It's essential to have both. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Jen. I know you want to talk about grit and grace. I know you got a story in there.
I don't know. No, I'm just still thinking about just, that it's these stories, it's these experiences in our life that I think actually form the grace within us. Because as I was thinking about, just like if you watch a beautiful, graceful dancer, she didn't just step onto the floor and was that. She had to learn and practice and go through even probably some pains to get to that beautiful state. And fall, yeah. And so I just kind of think about that. I'm like, our experiences in our life mold us, as we go through the grit and everything, mold us to become that graceful person after or even during. And so I don't know, that's just my thoughts as I was thinking about all this as you were sharing. That's just my mind just kept going to that. It's like, it's this experience of life, of the grit and learning the grace and actually asking for grace that molds us to who we are. And then we become those venerable women. But I think sometimes we don't see it until the end. We look back and we think, oh yeah, but not understanding that we are, those venerable women as we're going through it. But I think as we have more and more of these experiences, we're fine-tuned and we become that, like that graceful, beautiful dancer as we go through the messes of our life, hopefully.
Yeah, like the gangly 13-year-old that eventually becomes the prima donna, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because that grandmother who put so much time in for her daughter was one of the very most gracious people I'd ever met. And I didn't meet her until she was quite well in age, but I couldn't believe how gracious she was and just could make everyone feel welcome. And I'll bet you it was a result of all that struggle, just like you said, Jen, letting that refine her. So she had that grace. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jaycine. That was beautiful.
It's so fun to
just
share. Yeah.
So I want to talk about what we have coming up this week because we got some good stuff coming up.
We do.
Tomorrow we have Coach and Clear and we're doing a little something special with some essential oils. So if you're coming to Coach and Clear, bring your oils. We're going to talk just a little bit about how that can be a great accelerant in clearing and how that works. And then Wednesday we have book club. Yeah.
We do have book club. Yeah. Jen, what's your favorite part of the book so far?
All all of it. But no, what I really am seeing and I really like is she's helping you to understand that because your behaviors, your things that you call your self-sabotaging behaviors are actually just really good opportunities for you to change and grow. And so if you can kind of flip that lens, kind of see them as that, oh, good, now I'm getting information on an area that if I can just get in there and change this, my life's going to be different. So that's one of the overall messages that I'm really liking of this, but I'll give more particulars on Wednesday.
I know.
And that book is called The Mountain Is You, right?
The Mountain Is You.
Yeah. Brianna Westcott, I think. Yes. Brianna Weiss, not Westcott.
Weist or Weist or something like that. Yeah.
Well, and tonight we're having a mastermind group meeting for our girls. We have the current Monday mastermind tonight, but we're forming other masterminds. Jaycine, you want to tell us a little bit about what mastermind groups are?
Yeah, so mastermind groups are, man, how do you begin? So there are groups of women, and sometimes these women have similar experiences, oftentimes not. But what we're trying to do is to become these venerable women and to maybe achieve something in our life. A lot of times we're looking at, we want to do better in our business, or maybe we would like to know what to do when our kids are all leaving for, going to college. gosh, what are
Working
some
on anxiety is a big one. I know
Yeah,
a lot of women who applied for Mastermind wanted to work on anxiety and confidence.
Yeah,
Those
and
were
the
really,
reason they're doing that is so that they can get over those humps, right? So that they can go out and become the women that they know is
you know
inside
it in your heart.
them. You just got to get over this, right? Just like the mountain is you got to get over this mountain. And so forming these
Yeah.
masterminds, we get to connect on daily basis if you want to with your group, and to have discussions about how do I get through this? It's making those
Yeah.
connections
How do I
to
learn
be
it?
able to move forward in a way that you just don't get that just on Facebook. I mean, you've got some real good connections, but it's not the same. It's really not the same.
What I like
This
about
is building. Oh, go ahead, Jen. I'm sorry.
what I like about the mastermind group is how it's formed for us to learn tools, learn how to identify certain things, and that we basically learn to coach ourselves, and then we kind of help coach each other. So you're not just getting together talking, you're getting together and learning skills on how to then implement and change. So that's what I like about the mastermind group.
Well, and then life invariably brings us things to work with those tools on, right? And so when we have those challenges, we bring them back to the group, get the support of the girls in the group, get a little more of the tools, and solidify that so that we're moving along our path. Yeah, they're a really great way to learn. The groups are really small. They're somewhere between 5 and 8 women. And so that lets you get to know everybody and get really close as friends. Ideally, you would outgrow the coaches. And at some point, the group of women will just become a Starbucks group or, a lunch group or whatever, where they continue to help one another and move on and don't need the coaching anymore. But they're pretty special. I don't know anybody else that has those mastermind groups going on like that. It's pretty great. So that's tonight. It's just going to be a really good week while we practice with grit and grace, right? Thank you, Jaycine, for doing that. We're excited to see what happens next week.
You're welcome.
More in grit and grace. So, till then, we will see everybody on Coaching Clear tomorrow. Thanks, Jen.
See you later.
Later.
Gratitude, I give thanks for everything, with every little thought I think. I can choose to be happy, choose to be free, moment by moment. It's all up to me, 'cause what I think about, I bring about. That's the way it is, and there is no doubt. Day by day, I pave the way with every little thought I think.
Hey, thanks for joining us today in A Creator-Based Life. I hope you felt that compassion, mindfulness, and hope you came seeking today. You can find more of it at cmhcoaching.com or on linktree/cmhcoaching. Of course, any social media outlet, we're there too. Because you felt the benefit and light in this message, please invite those you care deeply about to join us. Help us to create a ripple effect across the globe of compassion, mindfulness, and hope. Then we can create a creator-based life together. Have a great week, y'all. We'll talk to you soon.
Choose to be happy, choose to be free, moment by moment. It's all up to me, 'cause what I think about, I bring about. That's the way it is, and there is no doubt. Day by day, I pave the way with every little thought I think. Day by day, I pave the way